Good morning, good afternoon, depending on what part of the country you're in today. We really appreciate you joining us for today's user group, and my teammate Connie and I, we're excited to present today because you all decided on our topic today. We did a poll on our LinkedIn page, and you picked for us to continue going down the project management reporting path. So that's what we're going to do today. And we've kept the topic very narrow so that we can get the most out of the hour. So I think everyone's going to be happy. I'm excited. I think Connie's excited. So let's get ourselves going here. I'm just going to walk through a few housekeeping tips. As we go through the user group today, this is your meeting. We want your feedback and your ideas and your suggestions. This is all about connecting users with users. So please submit your questions, your ideas in the question box. We won't be monitoring the chat box, so use the question box, please. Connie and I will both be answering questions throughout the meeting and trying to type the responses into the questions response as we go. If by chance we don't get to your questions during the meeting, we will follow up with an email. We get a report after the meeting and we will make sure everybody gets their questions answered. After the meeting today, you will receive a survey. Your feedback is so invaluable to us. We ask that you just please take a moment to respond to that survey. We've put a handout in the handout section of the GoToWebinar pane. You can retrieve that now. It will also be sent out with the follow-up email to today's meeting. There's a couple of formulas in there that you might want. There's not a lot of other information, but those formulas you definitely might want. If you're going to request the CPE credit for attending today's meeting, we're going to need you to answer all 3 polling questions and complete the survey. We're going to remind you of that every time we launch a polling question because we don't want anyone to get frustrated, but we don't have any wiggle room on those rules. So we'll keep reminding you. And I know that most of you are familiar with StandBy.NES. I see so many familiar names in the people who have joined us today. But for those of you who are new to StandBy.NES, we've put some information into your handout and listed it here. StandBy.NES is such an amazing and interesting company. We are a professional services firm that for the last 60+ years, our focus has been on the AE space. So we've actually been in business over 100 years, which I always think is fun to say because I don't think that there's too many businesses that can say that. But for 60+ years, we've had teams of experts that all we do is focus on the AE space. We've listed some of the services that we think are great companions to our Ajera clients. And what I would welcome you to do is go out to our website and check out everything we offer. We have so many great webinars and services and just things that we can help you with. So a little bit about StandBy.NES, and we're just going to briefly introduce ourselves. I know we want to get right into the content, but for those of you who haven't met us, I feel like it's helpful for you just to hear a little bit about our background. So my name is Val Higgins. I am the Managing Director of Project Management and Ajera Consulting for StandBy.NES. I have been working in the A&E space really my whole life. I've had the opportunity to sit in seats like many of you as a controller using the Ajera software in a multidiscipline firm. My passion, what I love to do is consulting. I love to help many clients find the best solutions they can with the software. And I focus largely on anything project management training, project management tools. So while I have my accounting degree and I'm full service with the Ajera package, what we're going to talk about today is what really gets me excited. So that's a little bit about me. I'm going to let Connie go ahead and introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Connie Hawkinson, and I have been in the A&E industry for most of my career, and I've also been in operational and project management roles. throughout my career. The past 8 years, or I have 8 years of Ajera experience with a firm here in Arizona, and had the privilege of helping to implement and also really helping to get project managers get the best value out of Azure from a report standpoint. I am really passionate about working with project managers to get exactly what they need out of Ajera, and also really passionate about working with clients to come up with solutions that work for them, but also just that whole dialogue with consultants. Your questions and comments really help us come up with really good solutions overall.
Thank you, Connie. I had a question from Amy about the handout, and I did check and it looked like it hadn't loaded, so I just loaded it in again. It's in there now twice. So if any of you are looking for the handout in the handout pane and didn't find it, please check again. It's there now for you. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started here. And, you know, these meetings are meant to be casual, conversational. As I said before, this is all about you. Please join into the conversation through that questions box. Connie and I work together all the time with firms, helping them train their project managers and set up their project management tools. So I think what you're going to find is that we'll have a lot of back and forth rapport, and we will both share our insights into some of these different topics we're going to cover. As I mentioned, we kept it simple for today. We want this hour to just be really focused on what you asked for. So we're going to talk a little bit about editing the project and my projects widgets to make them efficient for your team. We like to build key performance indicators, KPIs, into those widgets to bring our team's attention to projects where we may be having challenges. So we're going to talk about some of the KPIs that we use that might give you some ideas. In particular, and I think this is exciting, we like to build earned value analysis into the projects and my projects widgets. We have more and more clients that we're working with that are adopting the reported percent complete tool. So we actually are sharing with you today some formulas so that you can add that into your widget if you would like, and we'll share some tips on how to implement some of these tools. We want to make sure that you understand there are some newer, they're a couple years old now, but there are some newer project related widgets in the widget gallery. We want to show you how to get those and how to install them. The Gantt and a larger version of the progress than the one that is in the project command center. So that's our agenda for today. We're going to do things a little bit differently too, because we just really want to spend the bulk of our time in the software. So we're going to get all of our polling questions out of the way here pretty quick. So we're going to go ahead and launch the first polling question, which is, have your PMs had training on project reporting? And probably specific to Ajera, I should have said as well too. So just as a reminder, if you're going to request the continuing education, the CPE credit for today's user group, we'll need you to answer all three of these polling questions and complete the survey. So looks like 85% of you have voted, and you're coming in hot. The votes are coming in quick here. So I am going to let this go for a few more seconds so that everyone has an opportunity to cast their votes. All right, so it looks like we're starting to slow down a little bit at 93%. Hasn't changed in a few seconds. So I'm going to go ahead and close down the poll. So thank you to all of you that did cast your response. 95% of you responded. 24% of you said yes, 63% no, and 13% of you just aren't sure. So if I combine that 63 and that 13, that puts us at about 75% of us where our PMs have not been trained on reporting. So we'll make some suggestions around that today. And if you attended last month's user group, these next few slides are going to be familiar, but Connie and I talked about this and we really felt, it was important for those of you who might not have been with us to see this information. So if you haven't yet downloaded the 2021 Delta Clarity Study, we really recommend you do that. But the Delta Clarity Study really said that 2021 is the year of the project manager. We really need to be giving all things project management a lot of attention. And so these statistics that we're calling out here, most firms said that 62% of projects are on or under budget, meaning we have 40% of our projects that are over budget. That's a pretty significant amount. So it's time for project managers to really get back to the business of project managing. And that is a challenge sometimes when we're talking to clients, because what always comes up is, our PMs are busy, we can't ask them to do more. But clearly there's a benefit to be had from training our PMs. So the other interesting statistics that we just wanted to reiterate with you is you all are reporting a higher percentage here of reporting training, 24%. But these statistics from the Delta Clarity are saying that only 6% of firms, have trained their PMs formally. That's a really low percentage. Architectural firms are using more PM processes, defined processes than other firms currently, but only half of the firms that participated in the survey are offering project financial management training. And I really should have highlighted that, financial management training. And that's what we're talking about today, is developing some really great reports for your project managers that help them track the financial performance of their projects and then training them on those things. So just a little bit of substantiating data there from the Delta Clarity study. And as I mentioned, we're going to go ahead and get these polls right out of the way so that the whole rest of our session is just spent in the data. So our second polling question is, do you have defined KPI metrics or performance goals for your project managers? As a reminder, for that CPE credit, I need you to answer all three of these polling questions and complete the survey. So you all are coming in pretty quickly. We're in the 80 percentile of votes cast. I am going to let this go for just a bit longer to make sure everyone that wants to cast a vote has an opportunity to do so. And I see some new people have joined us in the last few minutes as well. So we're kind of slowing down now here. I'm going to give it just about 3 or 4 more seconds, and then we'll shut down this poll as well, with 92% of you voting. So thank you for casting your votes, and you should be seeing those poll results now. So 55% of us said no, 17% said we didn't know. So that gives us, 30% of you have defined your KPIs. Please, give us some ideas in the questions box. If you're having success in holding your PMs accountable to key performance indicators, performance goals, we want to hear from you. We're going to show some that we like, but we're interested in hearing what you've done too. So thank you so much for answering in that poll. We're going to go ahead now and launch our third poll, and then we're heading straight into the data. So our third poll is, do you have regular project performance review meetings with your PM? So about 25% of you said that you've defined KPIs and performance goals. So then the next step is, are we holding our team accountable? Are we meeting with them regularly? So we've got about 80% of you. We're going to give this just a few more seconds here. Let everyone have their opportunity to cast their poll. We're slowing down here towards 90% of you, so I'll just let this go for a few more seconds. All right, it looks like we're about done with 90% of you voting, so I'm going to go ahead and close and share those results. And 67% of you either said no or I don't know, and 33% of you said yes. So we've got a good contingent here with us, where you're really defining your project performance goals, your KPIs, and sitting down with your team. So again, please share your success stories in the questions box. Let's educate and help the rest of the team here with what you have found works for you. All right. So Nancy has asked, there's 2 documents in the handout section. Are they the same? Yes, they are, Nancy. Initially, we thought they weren't loaded, and then they got loaded twice. So they are the same document for anyone who's out there looking. Yep. All right, let's get into Ajera. So Connie, can you confirm that you can see my Ajera screen now?
Yes, I can see it.
Perfect. Thank you. What I have up on the screen here is one of our favorite dashboards that we share with clients when we're engaged in project management training. And so we're just going to run through some of the key performance indicators, alerts that we have built into this dashboard. So if you look here, like a lot of these fields are from the standard projects list that came with your Ajera. We've just beefed up that report a little bit. So a few things we've done, we've made our contract remaining turn red if it's negative. We want that to be something that project managers are really having their line of sight because it requires attention. I think it's important to mention here for people who might be newer to Ajera that when you see contract remaining in Ajera, it's going to be the contract amount minus build minus WIP. That's why they're aligned in this order. Excuse me. The reason is we don't want to exclude WIP from this calculation because if we did, potentially we would think we were fine on contract, but this is kind of a perfect example. We've already billed this project 100% and we've accumulated $1,800 in work in progress. So whoever is in charge of this project needs to be really taking a deeper dive here to see, have we wandered outside of scope? Do we need additional services? People are putting too many hours in, putting them to the wrong project. What's going on basically? So just keep that in mind whenever you see the contract remaining. It's going to be your contract minus build and minus your work in progress. So your time that has been charged but not yet billed. We've got our spent value, which I'm sure you are all familiar with. That's how much we have spent on our project at billable rates. Sometimes we'll hear this referred to as effort. This is our effort on our project. And what we've done here is not what you might think. So you'll notice this is 109%. So we might be thinking this spent percent is turning red because it's over 100%. But if you look down here, we've got a spent turning red that's 47%. What we've done, because we encourage people to use the reported percent complete, is if the spent percent is greater than the reported percent complete, we've got that turning red because that could be an indication that we're overspending, right? Now, maybe not, maybe we're, maybe there's something else going on, but this is a good indicator here. We've spent more than we've completed. I need my PM to slow down and take a look here. We've got our reported percent complete date turning red because it's more than 2 weeks old. So I think we've probably shared a maintenance schedule in this user group in the past, but what Connie and I would promote as kind of a perfect cadence to update your reported percent complete is every 2 weeks. Now, sometimes people will say, well, shouldn't we be doing that monthly with billing? They're not the same thing. So reported percent complete is actually a project manager's evaluation of how much of the deliverables have been completed. Maybe sometimes that aligns perfectly with billing, but maybe not. Maybe we've worked ahead because we were slow and we had the capacity, but we can't bill to that level, right? Could be the opposite. Maybe we've spent more, but the client's holding us back on billing. There's a lot of different things that can happen. So it's really critical to make sure if you're going to use the reported percent complete, that you really explain to your team and train your project managers on what it is so that they can be putting in an accurate estimation of how much of the work is complete. The reason we have this date turning red is kind of multifold or multi-purpose. So we want to know if people aren't updating their dates, but this is also meant to help your PMs. So I know sometimes, red has a bad rep and we think if things are red, it's bad, but we want this date to pop out at our PMs because this tells them, hey, I need to do some updates so that the rest of my information will be accurate, because if my reported percent complete is inaccurate, none of these calculations we're getting ready to talk about will be accurate. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about this in a minute, how we can make these dashboards very user friendly for our project managers to complete their maintenance. But that's why this date is turning red, really to be a red flag and say, hey, I got to go do some updates. I see that we have some questions. I just am going to work through these columns and then we'll take a look at your questions and your comments and have some conversation around that. So our estimate to complete is a formula that we've provided to you in the handout. And so basically what the estimate to complete is it's saying if you keep spending at this rate, well, I'll do it on this one. If you keep spending at this rate and completing at this rate, we estimate that we're going to spend this much more to get to 100% complete. So when we add the $35,000 we've already spent to the 52.5 we think we're going to spend if we continue at this pace, that takes us to a total of 87.5 once we're complete. That's estimate at complete, 87.5. When I compare that to my contract value of $75,000, that's meaning that we're on track to potentially overspend this project by $12,500. So to me, this is kind of like having a crystal ball, right? So for the effort of having our project managers complete this reported percent complete, we get this crystal ball effect across our whole portfolio. So if it looks like we're on track to overspend, we can take action sooner rather than later to try and turn that picture around. So again, we've provided some formulas for this for you in the handout. So if you want to implement this, you do have to have your project managers completing reported percent complete. You do want to set a schedule for that, but then you have the information you need to create these really great forecasts. So Connie, I would love to hear anything you have to add on those explanations.
I think your explanations were really clear, Val. I will just say that in my experience in working with project managers, once they understand, uh, you know, the importance of, entering that reported percent complete to give them the crystal ball look as to where their project is going to end up at estimate at completion. I think overall, I really find that this is such a valuable report. Overall, in terms of project management, just really being able to, you know, so clearly go into their phases and indicate where they're at. I just love this report overall, Val, and I really see PMs having a lot of success with this once they really understand the value of putting in that reported percent complete and what it's going to give the PM from a report standpoint. I mean, it's that whole ability to be able to course correct, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's why I always call it the crystal ball, right? Because without this, I can go on my performance so far, but having this ability to see how much more we think we're going to spend, to me, is pretty amazing information that we can get. So I do want to go through a few of the comments that we have. Chris has asked, how do you like to account for any T&E portions of a contract when looking at contract remaining? Do we just ignore T&E phases? Chris, that's always kind of a slippery slope, right? And so what you recommend is that we coach our project managers to estimate a contract value for time and expense. So if you all are lucky enough where you're landing pure T&E contracts that don't have a not to exceed value, that's the best of the best, right? If you're lucky enough to have that, we can still have our project managers estimate, right? Because if they don't, what Chris is saying here is right. Like, what if this contract amount is really short by the difference that we've billed? Because it was maybe there's a time and expense phase here where we didn't have any fee. So our recommendation is just coach your PMs through estimating. Most of the time they can do that easily. Occasionally when we're going through training and this comes up, we'll get people who will really get hung up on this and say, I don't even know how I could do that. Well, you've got experience with the project, you've got experience with the type of work, you've got experience with the client. So we're estimating. It's not perfect. And I think we just have to coach our PMs, and make them feel comfortable that it's okay to estimate, and that it's not perfect. But if we don't have accurate contract values, most of our reporting falls apart because my contract remaining is no longer accurate. So my backlog is not going to be accurate, right? All of these numbers kind of fall apart. So long-winded answer, I apologize, but I think it's a really important topic and something that comes up a lot with us. I think, Connie, anything to add to that?
No, I would echo exactly what you say. Just estimate the contract value, but also be really mindful of how you're billing that client. If for some reason you are showing a contract value for time and expense, if you don't have a cap on it, it can, just making sure that that invoice correlates to what you're doing with putting a contract value in.
Yeah, exactly. So Dion, I hope I pronounced your name right. I'm always terrified I'm going to pronounce names wrong. But Dion has asked, if you estimate time and expense but don't have a contract amount for the formula, does it still work? Well, Dion, if you're estimating the T&E, you would do that in the contract bucket. So we would, I don't know if I have the project command center open, excuse me. Let me launch the project command center here quickly, or actually I can just take a dive down into a project, right? So let's actually look at one of these and see if maybe that is our issue. So when we're talking about estimating a contract value for time and expense, and we can see our phases here, our billing type, you would be putting that into the contract amount field in the manage tab, which means all of your formulas would work. So I hope that answered your question accurately. Tim said we have a spent remaining to include WIP. So I think what you're saying is that you have some kind of calculation where instead of showing contract remaining, you're showing spent remaining, which would kind of be the same thing, right? Because we should not plan on spending more than our contract amount. I hope I'm understanding what you're saying. All right, I'm just going to enter some of this information in here for you all. All right. All right. How do other firms manage WIP on fixed fee projects? Also, how do you manage the clearing of WIP process? So let's see, Joey asked that. So Joey, that's really kind of like a whole nother topic. And I believe we actually have a recorded user group on that topic that you could look at. So I'm going to be really brief because I want us to keep going down this deep dive into the project reports. But basically what we recommend is implementing a WIP management process by where you would be looking during your billing cycle, and you can align this with your billing review widgets. We have our WIP column in our billing review widgets turn red once we have overspent the invoice group. So once we have overspent the project or invoice group, that's when we really should kick into WIP management and be considering making write-offs. We definitely want to manage our WIP because we want our project reporting and our financial statement reporting to reflect the amount we spent over our contract value, and we do that with write-offs. Now, we are not always writing WIP off. We could have straggler WIP on a fixed fee project where we pre-billed and we didn't overspend the project. In that case, you would be using the clear WIP function. So I hope that helps you, Joey. And Connie, would you just mind kind of entering that answer
Yeah,
in
I'm
and
doing it right
sending
now.
to everyone?
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, I think we've gotten through all of our comments. I'm just checking. I want to make sure we do. And okay, so JC has said, I'm told by my admin folks that if I put in estimates for T&E, this will show up on invoices. Is there a way to address this? JC, there is. So my assumption here is that your invoice formats are showing what's called the invoice summary, which means you're getting a grid that includes percent complete and time and expense projects. So if we don't want our clients to see that estimated contract value for our time and expense, it's not difficult to customize that invoice format and split the percent complete grid and the hourly summary, we can separate the percent complete phases and the time and expense phases. And on the time and expense summary, we can hide the contract. So we've helped a lot of people do that. And that way you get the best of all worlds. But I think it's worth that effort because there is so much value in you having this contract amount. So I'm gonna show you all another dashboard, and I think we've showed this to you before. I'll blow up my screen here a little bit. This is a dashboard that we created. We include it in our project management training. This was a real labor of love. It took us a couple years to get this perfected. There aren't any reports in Ajera that work kind of perfectly to forecast your backlog future billings. So we created this dashboard that's taking your backlog, which is your contract amount, minus how much you've billed. And then we're forecasting over future periods based on your estimated start and complete date at the phase level. Well, if I don't enter a contract amount, I don't have a backlog amount to forecast. So if you have a significant portfolio of time and expense projects, having all of them in with a zero value can really, it can really cause challenges. You won't be able to do any backlog forecasting for dollars, basically. So that's why, we think it's really worth that extra effort. So I hope that helped. Okay. So I see something else. Okay, I think we've already answered Dion's other question too. All right, beautiful. I think we're all caught up on comments, unless you see something I don't. Connie, I think we've
Yeah,
addressed them all. Okay,
so
let's go back to our favorite dashboard. And here's the approach that we like to take. And we really do a lot of work with people around project management training. And this year in particular, we've had some really amazing opportunities. We've worked with a really large firm and had the opportunity to provide ongoing training to, I think, over 150 project managers. And so we've learned a lot this year. It's been really an awesome opportunity. One of the things that I've learned, and I'm going to let Connie weigh in here, the simpler we keep reporting for our project managers, the better, right? Because they're going to get frustrated if reporting is all over the place. They're going to get frustrated if they have too many options. So we want to keep it simple, and we want to kind of give them a one-stop shop, if you will. And that's what we've tried to do here. So we've got this great summary information, at the top level here. Let me take that back down so you can see more of it. We've given them the crystal ball with the earned value. And the beautiful thing, I love this part of the widget technology, is a couple of things. One, if I see something needs an update, I can open my project right from the widget. So on any widget that is built from the project base, that open budget is going to be, or open field is going to be available for you to add into your widget. So what that's going to do is open just this one project. See how I don't have the project list at the top? It just opened my one project. I can come into my project. If I needed to make an update to my reported percent complete, let's say, I could do that really quickly and efficiently, save my change, close the project, boom, I'm back in my widget, I refresh, my date is no longer red. So we've given our PMs a tool that quickly helps them see what they need to update and quickly helps them make the update. This is a win-win. if we want their buy-in, right? Connie, anything to add to that functionality?
No, I think you're right, Val. Just having those indicators turn red and keeping it simple, right? Because what affects our project? It's time, right? So knowing where to go to look for time, knowing where to look to go for your reported percent complete, making sure your dates are updated. Those indicators, those, three things are so critical. And once PMs know and know what the firm expects, and if you keep it simple, I think the value got from all of that is just immeasurable.
Yeah, 100%. So we just had an interesting question come in from Joey, comment, and I do want to talk about this. So Joey's saying that his firm generally only provides budgeted hours based on an estimated composite rate, so I'm kind of reading into that average, to our project managers and hides dollar values. Is there still an effective way to empower project managers to keep projects on track without providing contract dollar value information? I don't think so, Joey. So I had an opportunity to work with a Houston firm back in 2015, and they wanted project management training. But when we got into our planning sessions, they had the same philosophy. They were only sharing labor hours with their PMs. And I just really had to have the conversation with them that I wouldn't be able to help them. Because here's the thing, hours tell me a little bit of the story. But what if I had budgeted, I'm going to try to find a good example here. Let's see, I'll do this one. So what if we had budgeted 1,573 hours for Highland Shopping Center and we actually, expended 1,588? I'm guessing that's not that bad. We might not have overspent by too much. We're talking about 15 hours, right? But here's the thing, there is an actual billing rate associated with people. So what if these 1,573 hours were budgeted at a designer rate, but when it came time to do the work, we didn't have any designers available, so an architect or an engineer had to do that work. Well, that value of their time is much higher. So yeah, I don't think you can really effectively hold project managers accountable to hours only budgets. Um, and I'm guessing that also means they're not involved in invoicing, because if they're involved in invoicing, they would be seeing contract value. So our best practices recommendation would be, your project managers are definitely one of the most important members of your firm and probably have the strongest relationships with your clients. They're leading projects and project teams. We should empower them and trust them with at least contract information. Now, I'm not sure if the reason you all do that could be to protect payroll cost if you're doing a lot of governmental work. But anyway, long-winded answer again, but I'm glad that you put that out there, because I do think that that's a really valid thing to talk about, is we really need to be looking at dollars. Hours do not always tell the entire story. Connie, anything to add to that?
Well, yeah, I mean, you're exactly right, Val. And it really largely depends too on, especially if you're doing a percent complete project versus a time and expense. But it's really difficult to, I think, empower a PM without seeing the contract and the spent values.
Yeah. Okay, good. Joey was happy with that answer too, so I'm glad. Um, okay, so Manina has asked, what are your thoughts adding profit dollars and profit percentages to this widget? So super glad you brought that up, Manina, because this is also a conversation that Connie and I have during our planning and discovery sessions when we're preparing for PM training. We meet with leadership groups to define goals and to get an understanding of the company's kind of culture, and also what level of information do we want to share with our PMs. So most firms that we work with do not share profit at the project manager level. Generally, we see profit shared at the principal, maybe department head, studio leader, whatever the terminology is for your firm, but kind of those higher levels is where we see, the profit being shared. Now, the thing to think about, and I think we could have a whole nother user group on just the project earnings and project profit report. But what we have to think about with profit is we could way overspend a project and it will still show profit dollars. So I feel like for our project managers, spent is probably the most powerful project performance goal that we can steer them towards. Because if you think about it, in a perfect world, and I know we don't live in one, but in a perfect world, we would want to bill every dollar we spent, right? So we really should be, steering our project managers towards achieving their spent targets. If your company, though, does have a transparent policy and we are cool with rolling out profit, here's my recommendation, and I'll let Connie weigh in, but I feel like rolling out a profit percentage is better. And in this example, we did some color coding. So we kind of set goals. And if the profit exceeded our percentage goal, we made it turn green. I don't think I need to set up some data because we also have a yellow in here, and then red is when we're really losing on it. That's why all of these are red. So if you want to roll out profit, I would consider using percentages, some color coding to kind of let people know if they're on track with your target percentages. Connie, anything to add?
Right. I think percentage is better. We all know that until we get to the very end of a project, we really don't know what our profit is going to be, right? And I really strongly believe coaching PMs to really focus on the spent compared to the contract value is the best approach. Really getting them to understand that the spent value includes the WIP, getting them to really make that comparison, you know, every month, I think is we can gain a lot of success that way for sure.
Yeah, and Chris just shared something that I love, actually. I'm going to steal your idea, Chris. So Chris uses color coding, but he doesn't show the percentage or the dollars. So he's just using color coding to show if the project came in profitably or not. I love it. I love it. Uh, thanks,
That
Chris.
is good.
Yeah, I love it. I really
That
do. So Megan asked, is the profit percent a formula? It is. You have to go ahead and do your profit percentage as a formula. And I'm just kind of, you guys are sending in a lot of information, so I'm trying to keep up with you. Yes, Tracy, I can contact you for sure. Dion said RPMs have many projects, so struggle to add in estimated dates and RPC and the PCC. What suggestion do you have to help empower them to enter the values? We've told them what other reports work when this information is entered, but they are too busy. I mean, this is something we hear every single day when we're training. I had a PM training this morning, and one of the PMs, we were covering maintenance, and he was very kind and polite, but just saying, I don't know how I'm going to fit this in. So I think part of it is accountability, right? Uh, Being a project manager is a really important role in a firm. You know, I think it's a privilege to be a project manager in a firm, and there is a financial responsibility that goes with being a project manager. And I think training goes a long way, but also I think we have to tie this into performance reviews, right? How are you doing at maintaining your projects? Here's my experience. At my last job, I worked for Deltek, and our Ajera consulting team, we used Ajera to manage our projects. And I would have, I don't know, 40 to 50 active projects at any time. And we actually had such a granular build out in our projects. We built out to the task level in the manage tab. And I was required to keep up with all of the maintenance that we recommend. So I will tell you, it was so painful when I got behind. I would be so mad at myself. So if I was traveling a lot or I just made an excuse or whatever, if I didn't do my maintenance one week and I had to catch up the next week, hateful. But
Mhm.
Dion, if you can coach your PMs to just, you know, set a 1 hour appointment with themselves every Friday. And I'm going to let Connie share her idea because she presented an idea to a client of ours that I thought was brilliant when this whole thing came up. Connie, you want to tell them about your idea?
Well, yeah, I mean, here's the thing. As you know, as a firm, you're giving your employees, permission to take vacation or PTO. You're celebrating holidays with days off. And so, why not make 1 hour a week an event for project management, right? So giving that PM the permission to do the maintenance on your projects, I think is going to go a long way. I mean, as leaders, set that expectation. We know it takes time. We know you're busy. Please book 1 hour a week with yourself. We give you permission to do that.
Yeah, I love that. And beyond even permission, like maybe making it company policy, right? This certain time, 1 hour a week, that's our time to all of us put our heads down, pay attention to our projects, collaborate with each other if we need to. I love that. And definitely, if we want the output, there has to be a commitment to the data that we put in, right? There's just no way around it. Oops, sorry guys, didn't mean to do that. There's just no way around it. We have to get the data in. We have to keep the data input. So a couple of suggestions I would make for Dion and others who are sitting in that role of having oversight on the Ajera portfolio. Consider doing some things like we've done. On our backlog forecast, we built in 2 columns that quickly help PMs identify where they need to get out and update their dates. So this 9750 is not going to forecast because my completion date is passed, right? So make it easy for them to identify where they need the updates. You know, going back to our projects dashboard, making that date turn red because they need to update it. These are ways that we can show them that we're really invested in a partnership here. We want to empower you, you know, with all of the information that you need to be updating. Connie, anything to add, like how we can really help get those PMs engaged?
Well, again, I think it's just that whole keep it simple. It's, being really, really clear about what the expectations are, right?
Exactly, exactly. And then being willing, because it's not easy, right? Being willing to hold people accountable, hold the team accountable. If your project managers get frustrated and they say they absolutely do not have the time, then that's an opportunity for someone to sit down with them and see if they are overloaded, or maybe do they not understand the tools? Do they need some more training? If your firm size is large enough, we would really encourage considering having a project coordinator added to the team. Connie has filled that role and trained for that role for a couple of firms this year, and just really have some amazing success stories on how having that dedicated person in the firm that is there to help, to assist, to coach, to cheerlead for the team can really turn things around. And one firm in particular where, oh my gosh, they've made just so much progress. Now, smaller firms probably can't, support that role. But as we start to see firms get into the, I don't know, Connie, what do you think, 30, 25, 30 employee range,
Right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And that can be a billable role too, by the way. So if we build project management time into our fees, that would be a billable role. So it looks like we're gonna have to follow up a little bit via email. I just appreciate how many comments and questions came in. I am going to answer Mary Lou here really quickly. There is a widget, a shell that you can start with. It's called the project list, and it comes with every Ajera. So you should definitely have a project list um, that you can just start building onto. I always recommend copying the original before you start playing. That way you can always go back if something gets, kind of messed up. All right, I want to be respectful of everybody's time, so we're just gonna close out here. So we really recommend that if you haven't yet had a training, train your PMs on the Ajera terminology spent, WIP, earned value analysis. We find a lot of times there's confusion around that terminology. Consider reviewing your security roles. See what reports, out of the box reports your PMs have, what dashboards they have. Keep it simple, weed them down to some simple dashboards. If you're publishing or allowing access to out of the box reports, we really recommend creating views of those reports. They can be very confusing. I do think we need to have a user group just around those reports, because just in the past week, we've had a couple clients reach out saying, hey, I ran this report and the profit is different. And when we dig in, what we find is they're making different selections on different reports and just don't understand. So we really have to help our team understand the options to select or predefine them for them. And then if we're going to give our PMs reports, let's just not assume they know how to read them. Let's take them through them, right? And then our present to you is the formulas that you would need if you want to add the estimate to complete and estimate at complete into your project widget. Do keep in mind that that reported percent complete field is required for that. So we so appreciate this hour. This is the most fun event that I think we get to attend every month. Your ideas are what inspire us. You all picked the topic for this this user group. If any of you have success stories that you would like to share, if you would like to co-present with us, we would love to have you co-present in a user group and tell your fellow Ajera users something that you found success with. Please complete that survey at the end of today's meeting and give us ideas of topics you would like for us to cover in future meetings. If you need that CPE credit, don't forget, you got to fill out that survey too. If you haven't yet joined our LinkedIn page, we have a private page for this user group. We do screen it to make sure that we don't get salespeople in there to bother you all. But we'd like to keep a conversation going out there, and we post some tips and things out there as well. So At the end of the day, we love this time with you. We love the energy that you're all bringing to these meetings, and we want to keep making you happy. So please share your ideas with us. And we hope that you have a very happy holiday season. We're looking forward to seeing you again in January. So thank you so much for joining us today, everyone.